Let's open up a marketing campaign so I can talk about it. The marketing campaign isn't really a marketing type so much as it is your overall strategy. The marketing campaign would be your overall strategy. What are you trying to do? Well, we might be trying to sell heating and air conditioning systems. So we would create a marketing campaign called 2024 Summer Sale or whatever. We would give it a description of what we're trying to do. And that marketing campaign would never be selected as a marketing type. That's the overall campaign. I guess one exception is if you don't know the marketing type and you don't know what else to pick, you could pick the 2024 summer sale campaign, but generally you wouldn't want to pick it. You wouldn't want to select it. So the campaign, again, is your overall strategy. What are you trying to do? Well, we're trying to sell HVAC systems. The campaign is called 2024 summer sale. Now, what does the campaign include? It might include an email that you're going to send. So you would then put in that email, describe the email. Better yet, create an image or a PDF of that email and attach it as a new document so that you have a record of it in the future. If it's something like a billboard, you might take a picture of it and attach the billboard. That way you have a historical record of the marketing type. Another type might be a postcard. Do the same thing. Attach the postcard as a PDF or an image, describe it, who is it being sent to, etc. Don't check the marketing campaign because this is a marketing piece within the campaign. Now the phone rings and you go to enter a new customer. You ask, of course, how did you hear about Mr. HVAC? Oh, I saw your billboard. I got your email. I got the postcard. Oh, the yellow postcard, you might ask? Yeah, that's the one. Now you would pick under marketing type that postcard, and under the marketing campaign, you would pick the 2024 summer sale. Notice there's only two choices in here. That's because the campaign list is only grabbing the marketing types that have the box checked denoting that it's a campaign. So we'll pick that. Now we know how they heard about us. When we create the sales lead, work order, invoice, whatever, it will use that marketing type moving forward. So if I were to create a sales opportunity or a work order, it's going to copy that over unless you don't want it to. There is a preference to require a marketing type selection, and there's a preference to copy the marketing type from the customer or don't copy it. Now, it seems like it'd be a great idea to copy it over, and I thought so too, until my friend James at Envirotech years ago said to me, hey, we don't want to copy it over because if it's wrong, no one will notice. We want to require the field to not copy it over. That way they have to think about it and they have to pick one when they create something like a work order. Good idea. We added that preference and that is now part of the system. It's been in there quite a while. The only time you would ever change the markup, or pardon me, the only time that you would ever change the marketing type is when you made a mistake. You realize that that's not why they called. It wasn't this postcard, it was some other postcard or something to that effect. Otherwise, you never change that. If they call again in the future, and the reason for their call is another marketing piece or another campaign, you leave this alone. But when you create the sales opportunity or the work order, whatever you're creating, you then pick the new marketing type. All right, so let me be clear on that. This is how the prospect or the customer first heard about us, and we need to know that. And we don't ever want to change that. We want that information to be in there forever. If they call back due to no other reason, well, then we would continue to use this marketing type. If they called again in the future because they got a newsletter and the newsletter was advertising indoor air quality and they called about the indoor air quality, they want to know how much, can you send somebody out? Then that sales opportunity, work order, whatever record you're creating, that would have the new marketing type and the new marketing campaign if it was part of a campaign. You don't have to create campaigns in Total Office Manager. You can just simply use the marketing type and that'll be fine. But the marketing campaign really is a good idea when you have many marketing pieces designed to get one goal or to reach one goal. Okay, so that is the customer record. Leave that alone, don't change it. And then when you create other records, you can have it copy over if you want to, or turn the preference off to copy it over, but definitely require marketing as a required field. If you do require a field be populated, it's a good idea to have unknown as an option. And I think we have unknown in here. Let's go. This is a fairly new database, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, we have unknown. Open that up. Find this later is the description. At least this way they can pick unknown and we knew they didn't know it. The problem with not having an unknown is that they might just pick anything randomly so they can close the form. I mean, keep in mind, if it's required, they cannot save whatever form they're in until they pick something. And they might just pick something randomly just so they can get out of there. And who would blame them? So always have an unknown as an option when you are requiring a field selection and it's possible the person won't know what the proper selection is. Okay, let's back out of that and let's talk about the return on investment. I searched for Google to see what we have. We have advertising Google call. All right, so let's open up advertising Google. Here we have PPC, better description would be helpful there, right? Under the view documents or the document button here, we really should have a list of what we're doing. That would be nice. If I go to history, I'm able to see the history of this particular marketing type. Now, what do we see here? Total sales of 4.9 million. So over time, this company did 4.9 million in revenue from advertising type Google. Their total expenses was 81,248. That means that they spent 1.65% of revenue on Google. They generated 838 sales opportunities. 170 were awarded. That's a 20.29% closure rate. The cost per sales opportunity, $96, call it 97. Cost per sale, $478. And the average sales amount, $17.96. Now that seems kind of small, but keep in mind that sale amount is demand service, preventative maintenance, diagnostic only calls, whole system changeouts, all averaged. There are, under the sales tab, there's 3,895 records. Those are invoices, at least in this list. We can see how many work orders were created. We can see all of the AP, the accounts payable activity, the expenses. So this is how we know what you spent on the marketing. When you enter a credit card charge or you write a check, when you spend money in the software, you have an opportunity to pick the marketing. So here's your marketing list, and you would pick the marketing that you're paying for. Now, with many companies, their chart of accounts has a bunch of marketing in it. And the reason why they don't just have marketing and that's it is because they don't have a feature like this. So in QuickBooks, you don't see a feature like this. I don't think NetSuite has this feature. That's why you'll see a chart of accounts with marketing and advertising, and underneath it, you'll have lots of children, each describing what we're describing in this list without cluttering up the income statement. Now, obviously, you can inactivate marketing. We didn't talk about that, but you're probably used to the software and you would know that you inactivate marketing when it's no longer something that needs to be tracked or considered. it can still show up in your reports. You just inactivate it so you don't have such a large list to pick from. That's how you know how much money you spent on marketing. So what do we know? We know how much, well, let me back up. We know what our marketing campaigns are, what we're trying to do, the overall strategy, sell precision tune-ups, sell service agreements, sell system changeouts. That's the campaign. We know the various marketing types that went into the campaign. We now know how much money was spent on each part of that campaign. We know where the customers came from for that campaign or those marketing types. And we know the revenue coming in because we know the customer, and we know that when we create invoices. We put all that together and we can get some really good reports. So let's click reports and go to, let's do sales, and my screen's kind of cut off here. Let's do sales by marketing source. And I'll pick last year, and I'll leave the rest of the options alone. And here I would be able to see the revenue generated from the various marketing sources. I can see work order counts, invoices, sales credits, estimates, conversion rates, the spend, etc. If I go back to reports, and again, that was if you are saying to yourself, man, he didn't slow down enough for me to see where he got that report. So that was under sales, and I click the sales by marketing here. But also we have sales opportunity reports, which are related. And we have other reports that'll get us information on how the marketing is doing. Let's go to the report navigator. Many people forget that's here, and you might find it a little easier to search in the navigator looking for the various reports that you might want. So there's our marketing reports and our sales reports. Right there. Sales opportunity reports down here. Closing ratios, mixing in the marketing information. All right, so let's do the marketing source summary right here. I'll highlight it. I can double click or hit preview. I can hit options, and let's do last year. Last year, I meant last year. There we go, last year. And let's preview that. All right, so this shows us the various marketing types and the money we spent. If I want to see different information, I can include, say, the inactives. I mentioned earlier that they can still be part of your report if you want them to be. And that's the marketing source detailed. And let's do this. Let's do last year. Exclude zero amounts, yes. And let's preview the marketing return on investment report. Now, this is one of the favorite reports among our users because this shows each of the marketing types, the revenues or sales coming in, the expenses, the cost percentage, and the return on investment. That gives you a clear return on investment for all of the marketing that you're doing. All right, let's close this form here. We'll come back to the Google. Finally, we have our sales opportunities. We know the status of those opportunities. We can right click, double click to get into these records if we want to. That is where we set up the marketing campaigns and the marketing types. All right, so how do we use that in the sales process? As I mentioned, you can create a sales opportunity from the customer record, from a lot of other records, from work orders, things like that. You generally don't start from scratch, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click Customers, Sales Opportunity Manager. I'm going to open up the sales opportunity list here. And again, it's sized incorrectly. We talked about that, right? Because I was connected in my office to different monitors. I come to the video room, the resolutions are different, so I have to resize. When I go back to my office, this will be too small. I'll have to resize it all over again. But that's why that's happening, if you're ever wondering. There's some good information in your sales opportunity list. You can see the date of the lead, and you can see the last modified date, but you can also see the date of last sales contact here. And we have a lot of blanks, don't we? We have one date right there. Now, if you don't see that column or you didn't know that column existed, you might look for it in your list. Just slide over and see if it's somewhere else out of your vision. Drag it over if you'd like. If you still don't see it, then click the opportunity list menu option right here. Go to form preferences, show columns, and just make sure that column is selected. What I would recommend you do is unselect every column and add only the columns that you need to look at a glance. And I would say that date of last sales contact would be one of those. What does that mean exactly? Date of last sales contact, and how would you know? Well, let's right click and go to that customer's contact log. And here we have an entry made that's sales related. Sales outbound, rehash, called to rehash the lead. All right, so that was on 8/15, and that matches 8/15 right there. That's where the date came from. The rest of these don't have an entry in the contact log that's sales related. But how do I know it's sales related? Well, we have a word sales in there, but that really wouldn't be practical. Many of you are familiar with the what best describes feature that's in our software. Let's have a look. Let's go to company, down to lists, and pick log topics list. And let's find that sales outbound and open it. And you'll see that we have something called sales outbound. And you notice how I like to name things. I name them so they sort nicely. Sales outbound, sales inbound, sales email, etc. I want to apply that to the customer job form. That's where it'll show up. And what best describes this contact log entry? In this list, which is not editable by the user, in this list, I have sales contact outgoing right there. And that best describes what I'm trying to do with this. And once I pick that, the software now understands that that is sales related, and it can populate the date of the last sales contact. Now, what would you do with that information? If you are managing sales leads, then you would want to go in here and look to make sure that your salespeople are following up on these leads. They're working the leads. One of the rules should be to use the contact log. You notice how quickly I could get into it. I just simply right clicked. I opened up the contact log. I can easily put in an entry. It's not that difficult, just a short little entry explaining what I did. And then the date of last sales contact will be updated with that date. It's going to use the newest date. That is a very helpful feature, date of last contact. Let's open up a lead and talk about some of the nuances here, some of the things that aren't so obvious. Here we have the marketing source, current customer. The only time I would use current customer is when I absolutely am sure that none of our marketing caused this person to call. I mean, they just thought of us out of the blue and they decided to call us. That happens, I realize, but a lot of times it's a equipment sticker, it's a billboard, a newsletter, it's your constant outreach, and you may not have any idea what it was, and you can pick unknown or pick current customer if you'd like. But whenever possible, try to dig, especially on high value leads, try to dig and find out what really prompted them to call. If it's part of a marketing campaign list, of course, we would select that here. The employee lead selector is when the lead was produced by an employee. So the employee might have produced the lead. Now, how could they have done that? Maybe they were at the grocery store and the person saw them wearing their uniform. They struck up a conversation. All of a sudden they've called and they want us to come out and fix their equipment or get a price on new equipment. Or it could be a demand service call and the technician simply said, have you ever thought about replacing your entire system? It is old, it's inefficient. Yes, we would like to talk to somebody about that. They could pull out their app and they could create a lead and they would assign their name to it. And now the technician can get credit for producing those leads any way you would like to give them credit. Financing activity. The reason why we have this here and the reason why it's what we call hard coded, meaning you can't edit these choices, is because we want to put together data on financing activity and its impact on our ability to close a sale. Our ability to move through the different cycles of the sale can have a lot to do with financing. Were they given an opportunity to finance? Were they declined and they paid cash? Were they accepted and we financed them, etc.? We would also look at that information to see if it has any impact on our closure rates and our sales amount, our average sales amount. And I will tell you that when you track financing activity, you will see patterns. People will spend more money. Your closure rate will be higher, etc. We all probably know that. Many of us have seen studies or heard of studies related to that. People spend more when they can use a credit card, for example. Give the lead a short description and at some point decide, are they qualified or not? And you can have qualifying questions here. And the qualifying questions can be different depending on the product that you've picked. But ultimately, you decide if it is yes, qualified, no, they're not, or I just don't know. Haven't got to that point yet. Unknown is the default. Do they have a time frame? That's hard coded. Do they have a time frame? If so, pick that time frame. The follow-up date does not create an appointment. That just creates the ability for you to filter your list for follow-up dates equal to today or equal to tomorrow or equal to this week. You would also get an alert in the mobile app. You'd have that little 1 or 2 or 3 circle that many of you have seen next to your leads, and you would know that today you had 1 or more leads to follow up on. The anticipated close date is just for your own planning purposes. If they've given you a date, then populate that date here. Again, it just helps when you want to go find these leads, work the leads, follow up on the leads. Profile questions show up here, and they can depend on the product selected. Back to the info tab, you can see the product selection, evaporative cooler rather. That drives the profile questions. If I go to the sales opportunity tab, I can see that I have the ability to set a priority. And you may not use that feature, you don't have to. I can set a probability, more on that in a moment. I can set a stage. All of these are user defined, meaning you create your own lists. When a lead gets created and there is no stage set, then that lead will show up in your SOM reminder list down here. And you can see when I hover over it, not sure how well you can read it, but when I hover over that, a little note pops up that says, these are sales leads from the SOM that do not have a stage set. That way, in your company, you might want everyone or certain people, multiple people to enter sales opportunities, but perhaps you have certain people that assign the sales opportunities to the correct person. If that's the case, and let's say I'm your sales lead coordinator. So in other words, I dish out the leads. All of you can enter them, I dish them out. Well, as you enter them, you wouldn't set a stage, that would be my job, and they would show up in this list, and I click that, and this form pops up listing those leads, and then I can double click on that lead, and you'll notice that, pop up. All right, you'll notice that it does not have a stage set, and I can go ahead and set the stage, and it will drop off that list. And when I do set the stage, I can assign it to a salesperson and do whatever you do at your company. Just have a certain SOP, standard operating procedure, to handle these leads. Obviously, leads are super important. The reason why we picked this topic, by the way, is this is the time of year where people start asking about the marketing and sales features in Total Office Manager, because many of you are thinking about marketing, and with winter coming and spring after that. So fall and spring are usually when people are thinking about these features and asking about them. All right, status, hard coded. You've got 4. You either made the sale or you didn't make the sale. Otherwise, the lead is either in progress or it's on hold. In progress, probably pretty obvious. We're working the lead. That doesn't mean the job is in progress. The lead is in progress. We haven't been told yes. We haven't been told no. On hold could be somewhere in between. So you followed up with your prospect and they said, hey, my mother-in-law is going into hospice. Kind of a big surprise. We definitely need to change out the system, but I just don't want to be thinking about it for a while. Can you get back to me later? Yes, I'm sorry to hear about that. How about if we just put the whole thing on hold for 30 days and then I'll just follow up. Is that okay with you? That'd be great. So what I would do then is I would set my status to on hold. I would enter a note in the contact log about it. Remember, it's easy. You're 3 mouse clicks away. Go to the contact log, put in a note. I would go back to info and I would do the follow-up a month later. And I would maybe set the anticipated close date to a month later, but that just depends on what I heard when I talked to them. They may have said, I have to make a decision by the 31st. So follow up with me before that. Well, then I might put in the anticipated close date of the 31st or whatever date they mentioned. That's how we use on hold. Now, when a lead is on hold, it does affect the reports, certain reports that judge the success of your marketing, because on hold is sort of like inactive. We don't give them credit for making a sale, of course. We don't give them credit for not making a sale. On hold as if the lead just didn't exist. I will say that salespeople, when they realize that on hold does not affect their closure rate, they might be putting leads on hold and kind of abusing the capability. Just like they might leave leads not awarded, or pardon me, correction. They might leave their sales leads as in progress for the same reason, because in progress doesn't mean that I didn't get the sale. But you should have policy on how long a lead can be in progress before it's considered not awarded. After all, if you have called somebody many times and a month has gone by, is that lead really in progress? Maybe not. It all depends on what your experience has been. Use that experience to design your SOP so that it's clear leads are not awarded under the following circumstances, beyond them just simply saying, no, I will not go with your company. I'm not doing it. Besides that, how does a lead get marked not awarded? All right. And then if it is awarded or not awarded, we have a reason, won or loss, a short one, like no response. And then explain the reason if needed. You could go into more detail. Like, for example, we were awarded the sale because the customer thought we offered the best deal, but that wasn't the lowest price. That just means they got more for their money than they felt like they were getting from anybody else. We'll explain all that, because it could be like reason 1 could be cheapest or best deal, but that's not really the reason. The reason was you weren't the cheapest necessarily. You could have been the most expensive, but they saw you as being the best deal. They got this much for that much money. And so you were a great deal. Now, there were other people that were like this, but you were a better deal because you gave that much and only charged that for it. Under appointment, the appointment tab, we would have a list of appointments. past appointments, future appointments. They're just here for convenience. And then finally, we have our user-defined fields to add information that isn't captured elsewhere. But don't forget, your profile questions can take the place of a lot of these user-defined fields. All right, so let's go back up to the Sales Opportunity Manager menu. And if you don't see that menu, by the way, check two things. There's a preference to turn the feature on, and you have to have permission to get to these things. So first check the preference or have somebody check that for you, and then ask them to check security so that you're allowed to get into these things, all of these things, or some of these things. Somebody should be in charge of sales leads coordination, meaning that ultimately it's their responsibility to look at the leads, to set the leads up, to manage the whole system. So that person would be the go-to person to get permission to access these things. The new sales opportunity is obvious. The sales opportunity list is where we were. Let's talk about probabilities for a moment. This is not an exact science. People often ask me, how do you know it's 40%? Well, experience eventually tells you. If you look at a program like Salesforce.com, go to salesforce.com, look at their product, you'll see the same feature. We have the same feature as they do. In fact, this system is patterned after Salesforce, their system. It's kind of a mini version of it. And probability is one of their features. What you do is you create a list of milestones or markers in the sales process that change your likelihood of making the sale. It might start with a phone call and an appointment. And did they cancel the appointment? Did they keep the appointment? Did you present a sales proposal? If they said no, are you in the follow-up stage, et cetera, et cetera. As you move through that process, the probability of making a sale keeps increasing. And you can guess at those percentages for now, and you can even leave the percentages out. As you become more familiar with your performance, you can start populating the probability. Probably what you're going to want to do is perhaps just start with the end and the beginning. So the signed contract was received. My probability would be, say, 100%. Or is it? If you have a 3-day right of cancellation, then how many cancel? Maybe none. Maybe they just don't. But maybe 1 or 2% cancel. So you might change that from 100 to something like 98. And you don't have to go count them up, but you might say to yourself, it does happen, it's rare, so make that 98. Well, when the phone first rings, what are your chances of making a sale? Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 0. Or when the lead comes in, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 0. So you start with somewhere in the neighborhood of 0 and you end with somewhere in the neighborhood of 98. And then you will, with experience, start filling these out. So let's say that a lead is entered, and at that point, out of all of your leads that get entered, how many result in a sale? You might say, well, just entered, like we didn't go to their house. No, just entered. Oh, maybe 20%. So your probability then is sales lead was entered, likelihood 20%. But what if you called and made an appointment with them? Now what's your closure rate? Well, did they keep the appointment? Don't know yet, just made the appointment. And then what if they keep the appointment and you make the presentation? You get the idea. You keep adding your probability. Now, why do we want such a thing? Because the software has the ability, either through reports, or you could export to Excel or dashboard it, but the software has the ability to say, based on how many leads that are in progress and their probability statuses, you will probably sell this many systems. And those systems average this amount of money, and they take this amount of time to install on average, and it would be able to report all of those to you. Now, something very close to the probability list is the stage list. And if I had it to do over again, frankly, I probably wouldn't put in both because they provide a lot of confusion. But the idea behind the stage, and maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. I made up my mind on that. But anyway, I can't go back in time. So here it is. The stage is really kind of like a checklist. It isn't so much the probability, although they can look a lot alike. It's the process you go through to make the sale. The probability list will most likely be much shorter than this. The stage list will be perhaps longer. So the stages are the funnel, as a lot of salespeople, marketing people would call it. They go through that funnel. That's the stage list. You can think of it as that funnel. So what are some examples of a stage? Like the appointment was scheduled, or it was awarded, or it was canceled. I have to follow up. I made my presentation, that kind of thing. The order, by the way, is alphanumeric unless you set an order. Let's take a look at that. Let's go to the probability list, stage list. It's the same. What I'm about to show you is the same thing. It will either sort alphanumerically or it'll use the order. So the order can be very helpful, that order number. Otherwise, I like to number mine. I like to have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 at the beginning of my stage description, so it's really clear which one you're supposed to select. By the way, if you didn't know it, I was about to move the form over so I can get to that red X, but if you come over here to the upper left on all the forms and click, you've got some options. Click close. All right, little tip there. Some of you are like, yeah, whatever, I knew that a long time ago. All right, back to the sales opportunity. Let's talk about when a sale gets awarded. I click awarded, and then all of a sudden a number pops up. Days in sales cycle, the number of days from the time the lead was entered until it was resolved. Now, typically, you only care about the days in the sales cycle for awarded, but it still works with not awarded. It just means that it took 933 days to find out you didn't get the sale. That is a very important number. If you have, say, days in the sales cycle, to make the math easy, if days in the sales cycle is 100 and you have 100 leads, then it's going to take you 100 days to resolve those 100 leads on average. And if your closure rate is 50%, then you know in 100 days, you are going to have 50 yeses and 50 no's. You're going to sell 50 jobs. And if you picked an estimate, like we should always do, if you picked an estimate here, you now know that you've got 100 leads. In 100 days, they will be resolved on average. You will have 50 yeses awarded, 50 no's not awarded. You'll be able to look at the estimates and get an idea of what your revenues are going to be over the next 100 days, at least as far as the date that it closed. Maybe not the date that you did the job, but you get the idea. Again, I'm making the math easy, but you'll probably notice a sales cycle in your company of something like 14 days. The outliers are the ones that really mess it up, the people that have an instant yes, which should be 1 day, and the people that think it over for months. By the way, when you mark a lead as not awarded, unless you made a mistake, you should never recycle that lead. If it's on hold, you can recycle the lead, meaning go find the lead and change it from on hold to whatever. You got it, didn't get it, etc., or it's back in progress. But once you are told no, then that lead should not be reused, because for tracking purposes, you are going to need to know that the lead was not awarded. They said no. What if they call back and say, forgive me, I changed my mind, I want to go with it? Well, then you have a decision to make. What was the reason for that? They called back and said, you had once given us a proposal and we decided that we wanted to do that work. We're calling today to find out if that proposal is still good or whatever. Can you help us? Ask yourself, why did they call? Was it a technician that was just out there and they were faced with a large repair bill, that's a new lead. That's a tech lead. That's an employee lead. Was it because they've been getting your newsletter and the newsletter kept your brand in their mind, your company in their mind, and they finally decided to call? Whatever the reason is, it usually is not that they just thought about you later on. Something probably caused them to call again. If not, then you can put in a new lead and call it existing customer, but I would put in another lead. I wouldn't recycle the old lead. Now, again, if you do, it's not the end of the world, but just understand the consequences of doing that. If you recycle an old lead, then you don't get credit. Your company doesn't get credit for producing another sales opportunity. Did you have one sales opportunity or did you have two? Let's say 9 months went by and they decided to replace the system. The fact that you've had them around for 9 months and maybe you've been doing preventative maintenance, maybe you went on a demand call. If that's the case, then the fact is, in my opinion, your company's activities created the lead. The fact that you were taking care of them and you continued to take care of them, that created a second opportunity. I know it's a bit subjective. It's not objective. So don't sweat it. If you want to recycle the lead, go ahead. But I would want to give your company credit for creating two leads. Your SOP, though, should dictate it. Your standard operating procedure should say when leads get closed, how many days elapse, close the lead, etc. All right, so let's click that menu. There are some shortcuts. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. There's your create the estimate shortcut. But if you click this, you'll notice there's an add new that does the same thing. And there's an open button to open that estimate. People ask us all the time, do I really have to create estimates? We don't do estimates in your software. We use Excel for that, or we have another software program. We just don't want to have to double enter the estimates. You don't have to, but again, you're losing valuable information, because if you know the amount of the estimate and you know your closure rate and you know your days in the sales cycle and you know your probability and you know all these things, you can put them together to create some great reports that predict the future, that project cash flows and things like that. So you're losing a lot of good information if you don't pick an estimate. What you can do, though, is you can have a single line item using an other charge invoice item type. That way it doesn't affect your accounting. It doesn't affect your cost of goods sold or your expenses. Just put in an other item, other charge item type, and give it a description such as rough estimate of installation final retail price, something like that. And then you can just type in the amount, 15,000, 12,000, 13,000. You don't have to be exact, but if you're using another program, you can always come back and make that number more precise, but just type something in there so you have some information regarding how much the job might sell for. You'll notice here that labor minutes is 0 because this company is not using that feature. If they were entering labor minutes into all of their items, equipment, etc., it would total up the labor minutes for the air handler, the line set, the disconnect, etc., the thermostat, programming the thermostat, wiring the thermostat because there aren't enough conductors. It'll add all that up and project how long the job will take in minutes. And you can't do that in days or hours. It uses minutes. That's the way it is. Takeoff software, in the old days, we used takeoff software and it was loaded with EMT connectors and pipe fittings and all that. Each one of those had a labor unit and it added it all up. That's why that's labor minutes. We're asked all the time, why labor minutes? Can't I do days? It does make sense, to have days, but it's because other software that did estimating and takeoffs, they all used minutes. So we use minutes as well for compatibility. All right, so that is the labor minutes feature. That's what that's all about. So yeah, create a single estimate, or pardon me, create an estimate with a single line item if you have to. if you're using our software for estimates, then that's great. Just keep doing what you're doing. Another question that comes up is, well, what if I gave them 3 estimates? I gave them a good, a better, and a best. What are you most likely to sell, the good, the better, or the best? And pick the one that you're most likely going to sell. You can always update it later, but the software just allows you to associate one estimate with a lead. Why is that? You might wonder. It is super difficult to add the ability to have a one-to-many association with a lead and an estimate. It makes everything more difficult in the software, and it makes the reports less clear, less black and white, leaves a lot more to guessing. So that's why you pick one. Just pick the one that's most likely. And if you make the sale, then go pick the one that you actually sold. And if you don't make the sale, you can leave it alone. You just pick the one that was most likely and leave it alone. All right, so that is your sales opportunity in Total Office Manager. What can you do with that information? Well, let's think about what we've been talking about. We know we have a list of all of our marketing campaigns, our overall strategy, and we have a list of all of our marketing types that go into each of the campaigns. So again, the campaign could be overall strategy, which is sell HVAC systems. How? Well, let's see. We're going to advertise precision tune-ups for only $89. Make it $87. Okay, that's a marketing type. Precision tune-up, $87 via postcard. Another one via email. Another one could be a billboard. The ultimate goal is to turn that into a service agreement or an equipment change-out lead. That's part of the campaign. So the campaign is the overall strategy, and the marketing types are the things that go into that campaign. When the customer calls and we enter their record for the first time, we now know how much it cost to put someone on our mailing list. We now know how much it costs to acquire a prospect. When we put in a lead and we track closure rate, we now know how much it costs to close a sale. So we had 100 opportunities for $100. That simple math, you'll never get them that cheap, right? But let's say you spend $100 and you brought in 100 opportunities and you sold half of them. Well, it takes $2 to make a sale. You know that for a fact by using this feature set. You'll also know closure rate by product, because remember, we're picking the product in the software. So we'll know closure rate by product. We'll know closure rate by salesperson. We'll be able to see if opportunities that are homegrown, we generated them in-house through employees. We'll be able to know if we have a higher closure rate, is that a higher average retail price, et cetera. It just goes on and on. So we're going to know a lot about our marketing expenses. There's an old saying in marketing and advertising, I'm sure you've heard it, and that is something like, we lose half, or pardon me, we spend X number of dollars on advertising every year. Trouble is, we're wasting half of it, but we don't know which half. I don't remember the exact quote, but who cares, right? A lot of people have said that. Many times we just have no idea about the effectiveness of our advertising and marketing expenses and endeavors. This helps to figure that out. Just have to be very disciplined about putting in the marketing types, and they're more important than the campaign. If you're going to do one or the other, do the marketing types, and be sure you pick those marketing types whenever you're spending money. You can always go back and correct bills. For example, like, let's go to our bills list. Let's open a bill. I'm just picking one randomly. Let's say that this bill was for marketing, but nobody picked it. So I can always come in here and update that by picking the marketing. Where did I miss the marketing? There's marketing. Where are you at? Marketing. So if I don't see marketing in here, what happened? Well, right click, menu pops up, go to form preferences and go to your items and just make sure that your marketing is in here. And you'll notice you've got the ability to get rid of a lot of columns that you don't necessarily need. in here. And then on your expense tab, same thing. And so I was on the items tab, silly me. Come in here to the expense tab and correct your marketing by picking it there. All right, so I was on the items tab, sitting in front of a camera. I wasn't paying too much attention to that. And I wondered where the marketing went, and didn't I look silly? So the marketing is under expenses. Now, again, I said this earlier. I just want to put it into perspective. This is why a lot of chart of accounts have so many marketing items in it. Maybe they came from QuickBooks, so they have under marketing lots of things. And it's okay to have this many marketing things if you want to. I wouldn't have much more than that. But whatever you want to see on your income statement, then put them in here, put them in your chart of accounts. But if you want to rely on another report to get granular detail, then don't put them in your chart of accounts, because that just messes up your income statement. But the reason why they have so many marketing types is because the software that they came from didn't have this ability to go pick your marketing. Also, while we're on the topic, you can pick your assets, like you buy a tank of gas or an oil change or a new set of tires, go pick your vehicle. You break a screen on your phone and you got to go have it repaired and it costs you money, then pick that phone. And now the software understands how much you paid for the phone, how much you paid for the vehicle, how much it costs to maintain it, etc., just by picking that asset, picking that marketing. Now, you might think, well, this is a lot of extra work, putting in sales leads and all this stuff. But remember, when a sales lead comes in, you're recording that somehow, aren't you? I mean, it might be a piece of paper, like a lead comes in and you write everything down, and then you draw a line, and then you write another one, or maybe it's a Post-it note, or maybe it's a message, a phone message or something like that. You're doing it anyway. Just use this form to make it an official entry. And yeah, it might take a little more time than you writing stuff on a piece of paper, but ultimately it'll take less time if you add everybody's labor minutes up, because when it's in the software, you're never double entering anything. Once it's in there, it gets used. You create things, it always brings that information with it, and you don't double enter anything. All right, let's talk about the marketing list generator. If we click tools, we'll see marketing list generator. This is an integral part of the system. All right, let me resize this guy. I'll close you. All right, there's our marketing list generator. What do we do with it? Well, we generate marketing lists. Oh, okay. Well, that's it. That's all it does. But there's a lot of unique things that it can do. First thing at the very top, select field. These are the fields that you can base your marketing list on. And you know what? I should back up. What's a marketing list? Could be anything. You could use this for other reasons. But what we had in mind is you're creating a list to market to. What kind of marketing? You name it. Maybe it's cold calling. Maybe it's direct mail. Maybe it's email. You're sending this list to MailChimp or something like that. It's just whatever list you want to market to. But you can also think of this as just a very advanced search feature. It does just search customers, but if you have a reason to search these customers and you can't find a way to locate them using any of the other tools in the software, you might use the marketing list generator to go create that list. All right, so these are the fields that you can search, like number of employees. Do they have an active service agreement? Yes or no? Let's pick out some of the ones that aren't so obvious. Like, do they have a sales opportunity in the system? What zip code? What are their year-to-date sales? Could be year-to-date sales. Let's pick that. And the condition then could be equal to, probably not, right? Not equal to, or maybe greater than, or less than. There's also a financial history, yes or no. If I scroll up and look, there it is, financial history. And you could say equal to true. And by the way, true and yes are the same thing. You can type in true, type in yes, type in false, type in no. They do the same thing. So now you're saying, give me a list of everybody that has financial history and something else. for example, a certain zip code, a certain state. So I'll say state, and that is equal to, say, MO, or starts with MO for Missouri. All right, and then I can run the query. If I go to menu, I can run the query, and I should have a list down here depending on that query. But I can go further with that. I can then come down and say, and people that have never bought a diagnostic fee. So I have a diagnostic fee residential diagnostic fee, not purchased, and I can have a date range. So what in the world is this telling me? Well, they have financial history, so they're a customer, not a prospect. They are in the state of Missouri, and they've never bought a residential diagnostic fee, which for many of us means they've never bought a demand service call. So we've never ran a service call. If we run a service call and we always charge a diagnostic fee, and if for some reason we don't, we still put the diagnostic fee on there at no cost, hopefully with a discount, it still would say, well, they have a diagnostic fee, because it doesn't matter how much they paid for it. It doesn't matter how much they paid for it. Now, if you wanted to find people that have not paid for a diagnostic fee, but had a diagnostic fee, and you want to find those who have never spent any money with you, then you can have financial history equals no, but they did purchase a diagnostic fee. What would that return? Well, the only way it would return anything is if the diagnostic fee was a 0. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Then you can say and or something else, and you can keep going. So what this would allow you to do is find everybody that's never had a service agreement, but purchased a diagnostic fee, which means we ran a service call for them, but they didn't buy a service agreement, and we can send them something. Send them what? Email. Why? The why is the campaign. The marketing campaign could be promote service agreement revenue fall of 2024. That's the campaign. The marketing type, which is a child, is email 1, email 2, email 3, 4, 5. We're going to send 6 emails, send out 2 postcards. We're going to tell the technicians to talk about it. And if they can talk about it and get the person interested, they get a spiff. So now we have a campaign that I just said. We have the emails. We might have a cold call, which is a marketing type, cold calling, because we're going to cold call everybody, 1 call, maybe, and that's it. So the marketing type says cold call them 1 time after email 3 goes out. And then another marketing type could be employee produced lead, because we want the employees to also get involved in this marketing campaign, and they become a marketing type. And that's how that works. That's how you can set up campaigns and really judge the effectiveness of those campaigns. All right, now I'd be ready to run my query here. So I can do run the query. Also, I can save this query and use it later. I can open a saved query. I can append a query, and that means that I want to run a query on the current query results. So if I'm having trouble getting what I want, I can always run a query, get half of what I'm looking for, run another query and get the other half, or narrow it down even further. I have shortcuts to get into the customer information if I right-clicked on the customer. Form preferences. Let's talk about that. This decides what fields show up after the query runs. And so you might get rid of a lot of this. Your goal might be to put this into Excel. So only pick what you need. You know, like you don't need this, don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need the other thing. Can I unselect all those? Yeah, you can do an unselect and then just get what you want in here. So your mailing address, your email address, a phone number, etc. And then you're ready to run the query. And I got no results. So let's get rid of that and run it again. And I got no results. So what did I do? I need to look at Are they putting in the word Missouri, or is it MO, or do I even have anybody in Missouri? So you want to narrow those down. Now, this is going to return a lot of records, so I don't think I'm going to hit OK. Otherwise, I'll be stalling in front of the camera while the query runs. But let's say that, oh heck, I'm going to do it anyway. All right, I'm gonna run the query anyway. I'm in a big database with tens of thousands of customers, so it'll take a while to run. And but I want the query to run so I can talk about the next step here. Once you run the query, again, save it if you plan to use it again. You plan to run it again, save it, save the query, give it a name, and you can reload that query. Otherwise, what you might be doing with this list is right-clicking and exporting into Excel. Well, that isn't too bad. So 5,211. All right, so I might right-click and I might open the list in Excel, or I might export it and open it later. Now, why would I put it into Excel? I might be doing a mail merge with Microsoft Word. So Excel and Word, I can do a mail merge. I can also do a mail merge through Word into Outlook. So I can create something in Word, feed it from Excel, and send it through Outlook. So I could do that. I could also send it to MailChimp or something like Constant Contact or MailChimp, and I can send out those emails that way. That's what I want to do with the list. Now, in the old days, just so you know it's here, in the old days, before Word got as good as it did about mail merging, we had a mail merge system built in. And if I click Add New, it'll open up a sample letter right here that we've had good luck with. And then I can hit Preview, and I'm not going to preview all of those because it's going to produce over 1,000 pages. But that letter would get merged, and then I can export it as a PDF and print it later. Or I can just hit Print. Probably wouldn't do that in case something went wrong. I'd export it first as a PDF and then print it. Something goes wrong, you can start the print job again. But this used to be how you created your mail merge letter in our system. And then you gave it a name and you had those in here for future reference. The other thing that you really want to do here is when you create this list, right click and do a select all, unless you have some reason not to select all of them. Do a select all. And then right click again and do add log entry. Clear duplicates. I probably don't have duplicates. Why would I have duplicates? Depends on your query. You could end up with some duplicates, but chances are you won't. But anyway, normally you're going to say yes unless you have a reason to do otherwise. I'm going to hit no to save some time. And I'm taken into this little form here, and this is a contact log entry form. It picked my name, but I can pick someone else's name. If I have permission to get into this, by the way, then I'm going to have permission to pick someone else's name. I can pick a topic such as marketing outgoing. And if I'm going to be doing this Friday, and I'm just getting ready for it, well, then I can select Friday, and I might put in 5 p.m. That's when I'm going to send the email, send the postcard, whatever. And then for the subject, it would be email. And if my email has a code number, then I would put that code number in there. And in notes, I would explain the purpose of the email and like the who, what, where. Like the email talks about a discount, talks about this, talks about that. Put that in there. Click the copy entry to the company contact log right there. Click that, and you'll see why in a moment. And then you can click the button that says add all or add to selected. So I really didn't even have to do select all on there. I forgot that there's an add all that would have added to the entire query, or add to the selected. And I'll just do add all. And then, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so it just added 5,000. Whoops, gave me an error, invalid property. So I got an error adding all those, and Shame on me. Let's open that back up and see what happened. Oh, wrong. Oh, I thought I entered the wrong password. All right. Now let's go to company info, go to menu, contact log, because I checked that little box, and that checking that little box would have put a contact log entry in here telling everyone that we sent out the postcard. So one thing that I didn't put in there, I should have put in the email notes, is how many went out, the basic search query, etc. The more notes, the better. They would have gone into the notes area. So you want to be able to come in to your company contact log. Remember, I went company info, and this form came up, and I opened up its contact log. This would give you one central place to go in and see all of your marketing endeavors. You can filter here by subject, you can filter by who entered it, you can filter by the topic, but this gives you a single place to go look at all of your marketing endeavors. Why wouldn't you go to the marketing campaign or marketing type list? That's a great place to go, but this would give you chronological information about your marketing endeavors. So that's why we would have checked that box. Now, I don't know what caused that error. I haven't had that error before, but as you probably know, when you get that yellow screen, and I think you've noticed you get much fewer of those than you ever did before, we know about that error. We're looking at it and we'll fix it. Chances are that fix will just come out in the next update. You may not get that error. It was an invalid property value, and that means that it could have been related to my database, the way my database is set up. So you may not get that error. So, feel free to go try to use that feature, and you might not have that issue. But what happened there is, what should have happened is, it should have added the contact log to the company, but also added the contact log entry to all of those customers. And that can be helpful because, let's open up our customer list. Let's say the phone rings and you find the customer, you open it up, and they say, yeah, can you come out and give us a tune-up on our furnace? I think you call them a tune-up, I think, or precision tune-up. But anyway, we want you to come out and do the preventative maintenance on our furnace. So that way, when we get back from our long trip, we don't have to worry about the heat not working. I realize it's not quite that time. And then you're asking, how did you hear about us? And they say, oh, I found you on the internet, something like that. But you know that you've been advertising lately on Yelp, or that you've been sending out postcards, or you've been sending out email. You know that. And if you click menu, you can see all of those marketing types. So this contact log would have the marketing types entered in here. Every time you market to them, there'd be a note in here about you marketing. And if you came in here and you saw that you've been emailing them, or they're part of your mailing list, and they haven't told you anything different, then I would encourage you to go pick that marketing type. So they said, I just found you on the internet. You know that you've been sending out emails. Go find that email or whatever it is that you've been doing. And again, you'll see it in the contact log, and pick it. All right. Now, are you sure that's what it was? No, but they called out of the blue. They said they found you on the internet, and you know that you've been doing something like sending out direct mail. You should pick the direct mail. I would venture to say that's a better choice than just website, because that's real common, by the way, is internet or website. I found your website, found you on the internet. All right. And remember, when you pick it, unless you made a mistake, don't ever change it. Change it on subsequent records like leads, work orders, things like that. What if the person's tired of getting your marketing? Maybe they're not tired of you, but they're tired of getting your marketing. A common one is, will you quit sending me mail? I don't like getting mail. I don't want to waste the paper, etc. We have a no marketing buy here. And you can pick direct mail or fax, if anyone was doing that anymore, texting, emailing, telephone, or all. And that tells the software not to put those people in the marketing list generator. So when you generate your marketing list, you have the ability to either keep those out of the marketing list or add them in just so you know about them. Maybe you want to double check, but down here you'll see include contacts from the contacts tab. I'll explain that. Include no marketing in the results, and that would be any no marketing. Include inactives in the result. So if any of those no marketings are checked, you want to include those, then just check that box, and then you just want to avoid doing whatever they wanted you to avoid doing. Let's talk about that contacts tab a minute. If I say include contacts from the contacts tab, then what's happening is I'm grabbing everybody that's in the contacts tab. And you might have the husband, the wife, the kids, or it could be a business and you have a bunch of managers. Well, it will repeat the company name or the display name in the marketing list generator. So your marketing list will have the same display name repeated over and over again with a unique name and their contact info. Now, if you didn't know it, you click menu and go to your show columns in the contacts tab, pref, then you can see preferences on what to put in here. I recommend you have a first name and a last name in here. You can have the full name if you want, but I do recommend first name and last name be separated. And that's where it gets the info. Now, why do I say separate the first name and last name? I also say don't type uppercase. So I'm going to put my name in here, James Leichter. Oops, I misspelled my own name. It is hard. All right, so I have me in there all uppercase. Now I can send a letter to Dear Wyona, not Dear Wyona Taggart. And I can also send a letter to Dear James. The trouble is I'm screaming at poor James, Dear James, you know, it's uppercase. So it would look weird to have Dear properly cased and then have James uppercase. When you put it into Excel, you can fix that. You can even fix it and re-import it if you've been doing it that way. But don't type uppercase for that reason. That way it looks better when you merge that information. Now, speaking of merging, you can get pretty carried away with the data you're merging. You could merge lots of information about the customer. So towards the end, it can say, so James, by now you're thinking this is going to cost too much. I can't afford this, but don't worry, James. And you can put other information that's personal to that customer in the letter. And the more you do that, of course, the more work it is for you, but the more they think this was personalized. It's not just random mail they're sending out from a machine. And if it is, they did a pretty darn good job. Contacts tab, great feature here. And you know what, as long as I'm in here, let me show you something else about the contacts tab. Oh man, I can't get to it because well, I'll just do it this way. I wanted to show you the purchasing. People ask about this all the time. Purchasing role is what that'll say if I expand this out a little bit. On commercial, this is mostly used for commercial, but it could be used for residential as well. But your purchasing role is a well-known thing in marketing, and you'll see this again in Salesforce.com, their app. Why do you keep talking about Salesforce? Because they really are the greatest lead management system that I know of, because after all, it's called Salesforce, right? That's the app. That's what it does. But we have a lot of the same features that they do. I just picked and chose what I thought we really needed and left out the stuff that I didn't see of any value for most of our clientele. The purchasing role is hard coded. You can't change it because these are industry accepted terms, sales industry accepted terms. So you have your blocker or gatekeeper, you have a buyer, the actual buyer, you have a champion. They're not the buyer, but they're your champion. Maybe they recommended you. You have the decision maker, which may not be the buyer. I might be the buyer, but you are the decision maker. I have an evaluator, recommender. I have an influencer. The influencer could be the kids, for all we know. Anybody that's going to influence a yes or a no. We have the initiator who initiated this. We have the self-proclaimed decision maker. Be aware of that person. They have no authority, but they just want to act like they do. And a lot of times when we're told no in the sales process by someone that did not have the authority to say yes. So what else are they going to say to you? They're going to say no, or they're going to avoid you. We don't know what they are. And then we have a user. So they're an actual user of the product, the system, whatever we're using. Again, it's hard coded. You can't change these because these terms are not made up by Aptora. They're industry accepted terms. You don't have to use that feature, but I wanted to explain it because people ask that all the time. All right. Let's close that and let's go back to our marketing list generator, which so rudely closed on us earlier. And go to menu. And I just want to make sure that I wanted to make sure I covered all these menu options. The customer job is just a shortcut. The add log entry we talked about, exporting as a delimited file, and then opening it in Excel. You may have to export it first if you're hosted. And then we talked about print. We don't print much anymore, but it's still there. And the form preferences is the information that you can put in here. And don't forget the save and load. And finally, the help topic. If you hit help or you press F1, then you'll be taken to a help topic, which explains all of this. And the help topics are pretty good. Like, for example, if I just push F1 on my keyboard, then it'll take me to the marketing list generator topic. And you can see as I scroll, it's pretty thorough. And then there's videos on this as well on YouTube. All right, so that pretty well wraps up the sales and marketing features in Total Office Manager. But what about next gen? What about Total Office Manager next generation? Is this going to be part of that? Yes, it is. You might have saw previews of that in other webinars that I did. Everything is there. Everything's the same. When you know how to do it here, you know how to do it in next generation. We've duplicated all of the features. We found a few things that were missing or different lately, just so happens. So we went in there and started adding them. I think that's all done. But our goal, our objective is to have the exact same features that you have here. One difference, though, is that the marketing list generator in next gen, because it's newer technology, will be able to handle more complicated queries without saying, this is too complicated. Occasionally, you'll get a message that says, I can't figure it out. Could you simplify your query? You'll probably get a lot less of those in the next gen of the marketing list generator. Also, the big thing is we're going to be finishing up. We're wrapping up right now our synchronization with MailChimp. We currently do a one-way synchronization proof of concept, make sure it worked good. And that's great. So we're sending all of this information out to MailChimp. You log in to MailChimp and it says synchronizing and you're done. What we're doing right now is building the other side of that, the two-way synchronization, so that we're giving them info. And if they have info, they're giving us their info. And that will continue to evolve. We'll continue to improve that. But that's something we're working on right now. And that would be the big difference in the two features. Oh, and we did leave out the print mail merge part, just because to our knowledge, no one uses that feature and there's better alternatives anyway to that. All right, that wraps up sales and marketing. And I talked about next gen. So whatever you learn in this program, you'll be ready for next gen when you start using that one. I'm going to ask Bubaka, who's my stand-in engineer. Thank you, Bubaka, who's behind the camera. Do we have any questions that I need to address?
Yes, we do have one.
Oh, by the way, let me tell everybody why I'm behind a green, or I'm in front of a green wall, because we didn't know how to turn it on. That's the truth. I could lie and, tell you something that makes me not look as dumb, but the truth is we didn't know how to turn it on. Bubaka's standing in for the engineer who normally handles this, and he knew how to do everything, but neither one of us knew the button to activate the virtual background. What's our question?
Came from Erica asking, will you be able to email from the marketing generalist?
Question was from Erica. Hi, Erica. Will I be able to email from the marketing list generator? Yeah, I don't see why not. So to be clear, you will be able to, when we're finished with it, you will be able to synchronize with MailChimp. And then, of course, you can email through MailChimp. But I have a feeling that wasn't exactly the question. I just want to be sure I was thorough. The other thing is, I don't see why we can't add the ability to send email to one or more contacts through here, through the software. We already built that emailing system, so it already works. There's no reason why we can't add it to the marketing list generator. So yes, I would say I will put that. No need to put in a feature request, anybody. I will write that down and we'll make sure that we get that. By the way, on next gen, the emailing works way better. Some of you have commented that the email system isn't as good as it needs to be in Total Office Manager. We get it. We rewrote the thing entirely. Now you can send through Google, you can send through your Outlook accounts. It's beautiful. You just log into Google, log into Microsoft. It works really nicely. So yeah, I could have said yes and been done, Bubaka. I had to give one of my famous long answers. Any other questions?
So far, that's the only one we have.
Okay, I think that's it then. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We're happy to answer them. Talk to your account managers if you'd like to. Jonathan, Tim, or contact the help desk. We'd be happy to help you.
Aptora U.
Aptora U. Oh, yeah, just a reminder on Aptora University, that is week after next, isn't it? Yeah, yes. Week after next, starting on Monday.
Yes.
What's that date? Do you have that date handy?
16
through 18, that's it. Yeah, I should know that. I'm supposed to be there, that's right? I should know. Yeah. By the way, here's something that we will share with you if you'd like it, but let me show you something here. I use this with coaching clients. Let me make this full screen. This is a marketing campaign worksheet. It's empty, it's blank. It would need to be filled out, but this is the idea behind a marketing campaign. You have one worksheet per campaign. You explain the campaign, you give it a name, you write down the objective, or you enter the objective, you figure out who the audience is, and you would enter search criteria for that. You enter the message that you're trying to convey. What's the special office, or pardon me, what's the special offer or the call to action? What are we going to send or do? You don't have to write it here, but you would enter what you're going to send, what you're going to do. It could be a phone call, an email, direct mail. Remember, this is one campaign, but it could be many things. And some other questions like, are we going to need to follow up? What's the budget? And then you write down, or you enter the deliverables, the who, what, and the when. So those are the deliverables, the email 1, email 2, email 3, email 4. And you might briefly describe what is email 1, 2, 3, and 4, what's the messaging. Now you go about writing those emails and come up with the marketing types. That's an easy way to plan your marketing. And then one more thing I wanted to share with you is some simple rules to marketing. I'll just read rule number 1. If it can't be measured, we will not pay for it. So if it can't be measured and it costs money, we're not doing it. Because the number 1 rule to marketing, as far as I'm concerned anyway, these are my rules, is before anyone asks me for any money, we need to do some research to figure out if this might work. If it doesn't work, that's fine, but where's the research? And we also need to know what success looks like. 5 of these, 10 of those, 20%, whatever. What does success look like? So what research do you have that suggests this marketing is going to work? And you don't have to prove it. Just, I don't want random thoughts, right? Just some research. Then what does success look like? Well, we're going to sell 10 of these widgets. Then the question becomes, after you've defined success, sell 10 widgets, how will you know you sold the 10 widgets? Well, it's easy because we'll just count the widgets sold, but it's not always that easy, right? If you're doing pay per click and you don't set the system up right, you don't have landing pages, et cetera, unique call to actions, you may not know if that pay per click was worth it. And many people, maybe you're one of them, have spent or wasted a ton of money in marketing and had no idea if it was effective or not. So that's the number one rule is, if it can't be measured, we will not pay for it. If it can't be measured and it's free, go right ahead. Go right ahead. But if you want money, you got to tell me, how am I going to measure it? How are we going to measure success? So we want to test the ability to measure in advance, making sure that whatever we're about to do, the system of measuring does actually function. Like we're putting up billboards, or pardon me, we're putting up banner ads. Well, if somebody clicks on that ad, how am I going to know it? So I ask you, you come to me and say, James, I got a great idea, banner ads. Marketing campaign, I want to add banner ads. Oh, okay. Well, what's success look like? Well, $30 a lead. If we can get our leads for $30, by the way, that would be a bargain and a half, right? So call it 100. If we can get a lead for $100, I will call that a success. All right. Well, how are we going to measure it? Well, we're just going to, take leads and we're going to take the money we spent and divide it by the number of leads. Well, before that, though, how do we know the lead came from the banner ad? I mean, we could ask them, did you click our banner ad? Did you see our banner ad? But how are we really going to know it? So we then would create a mechanism where when they click on the ad, we know it. We know they clicked the ad before they called us, before they filled out a form. How would we know it? Because the ad takes them to a special form. What if they don't fill out the form? Well, when they get there, a special phone number is on our website, which would normally not be on the website. When they come from the banner ad, a special phone number is dished up. So if they fill out the form, I know it. If they reject the form and call the phone number up here, I know it. If they contact us in another method, it might not be so clear, but you have to show me how we're going to know it. That's marketing rule number 1. So when you're writing out your campaigns, just keep the marketing rule in mind, and you will keep from wasting a lot of money, like I have, and like many of you may have had in the past. Final questions, Bubaka? Anybody?
Yes, we have a question from David. He say, can we discuss the call ID feature and how it works?
Oh yeah. I don't have the caller ID feature functioning in the studio right now, but and we're putting our efforts into the caller ID system with Next Generation. But the way that will work in Next Generation, the way it does work is there is a phone activity form like this one that is tracking calls coming in. It is identifying the phone numbers that they're calling. If you have call cap, then we know the phone number that you're leasing from them. So we know the phone number you dialed, not just the one you dialed from, which could be blocked, but we know the phone number that you called. If you are in here as an employee or a vendor or a customer, it looks you up. It shows you a shortcut to get into their history. It shows you any leads that they have on file, etc. And you can right click to shortcut into creating work orders and other things. If they've never called before, it says they're unknown, and you can shortcut into creating a new customer. You'll know if they're on credit hold and other things. And then that call data is stored in the database forever, so you always have it. So that is something that we don't currently improve on in Total Office Manager, the desktop program. We may not give up on it entirely. We may come back and revisit it. But right now, our focus was adding that system and improving on that system in Next Gen.
He did ask if it is an extra cost.
Oh, yeah, caller ID is an extra cost if you sign up with the well, the feature itself, depending on when you bought it, when you acquired it, the feature itself would have been an extra fee. And then with call cap, there is a monthly fee, and there's a minimum monthly fee, and then there's a usage fee. I'm not familiar with what that is off the top of my head. I wouldn't want to try to guess, but there is a small fee to acquire the option, the feature, and then there's an ongoing fee, not through us, but through call cap if you're using the call cap system, which I would recommend. It's pretty nifty. All right. That wraps up our questions, I think.
One more.
Oh, good. One more.
Yeah, is it an ATA for next generation of Tom?
Well, it has arrived. So Aptora 360 is the suite of programs, including Next Gen and the mobile and scheduling and payroll and all those things. The entire suite, we call it Aptora 360 for 360-degree coverage of your software needs. That's where that came from. But it is out. Really, the question is, when could you get it? And I can't really say for sure because we're releasing it to companies that have certain activities. Certain types of companies are a good pick for us to release it to early on. And we just wait and see how they do with the program. If we have a bug, we fix it. And there have been bugs, nothing major, thankfully, but there's been bugs, a lot of little bugs that we've been fixing. Every once in a while, we discover a feature that we forgot to add. Not like we forgot to add work orders. It's more like a menu, a shortcut, things like that. We keep finding those and we add those. And then as we feel comfortable, as things quiet down, we select carefully another company or two that does other things different than what the others are doing, or maybe their volume is greater. So really the question is, and I can't answer it for you, when could you get your hands on it? Just know though, when you get your hands on it, we've really done everything we can do that we know to do to make it good and reliable and problem-free. We're just being really careful, really careful. I just don't want to make the mistake. We have a great program now that works really well. I don't want to make the mistake of rushing out the new one and irritating people and making them mad. And then that's what they remember for years. And that is it. All the questions answered. Well, thank you, Babaka. Appreciate you manning things behind the camera. Thanks to all of you for being customers of Aptora. You run businesses, we're nothing without you. You pay the bills. We are doing the best we can, but we can always find room for improvement. And we welcome your suggestions. And as always, thank you for being at the webinar, and I'll see you next month. Have a good afternoon.